And welcome back to the second episode of the Stormfront podcast. It's your guy, Steven here. Now, important announcement before I continue into this episode. So, the actual title of this podcast is going to be the Stormfront. Disregard what I said about livecast, because when I was trying to figure out how to get my podcast on Apple Podcasts and iTunes, one thing that I saw in a video was don't have the same title as someone else does. And I saw livecast in with a few different people's actually podcasts in Apple Podcasts, the app that's on the iPhone. And I was like, okay, I just went with Stormfront. So that's a quick announcement I wanted to make before I got into the real meat of this episode. But yeah, I mentioned at the end of episode 1 that I'm going to be talking about sports. Well, specifically, I actually want to go ahead and talk about the latest ESPN Bracketology. Now, I know it came out back on August 10th. I'm doing Joe Lunardi's ESPN Bracketology. Jerry Palm on CBS has not updated it since April 9th. Not sure what they're doing, but we're going to get started. Now, of course, there's a lot of questions. Is college basketball going to happen? Is it going to be postponed? I was just seeing earlier today, Andy Katz, who is a very, very, very well-known figure in college basketball, mainly associated with the Big Ten Network. He was mentioning it's too premature for a decision to be made towards postponing the season straight up towards 2021. You know, with Big Ten basketball in general, there's so many questions right now. You know, I would like to see there would be a full-on season, but we can't guarantee anything with this virus still spreading and all that. Of course, college football, you got Ohio State among the teams that are trying to petition for a season still to happen. The SEC released their college football schedule today. I think it's just conference teams. So, lots of ifs in there. Lots of question marks. But let's go ahead and dive into the main aspects of this video. So, these bracketology updates are basically, and this is definitely not what it's going to be by March, of course. The final one, of course, this is just to give an idea of where teams could be at in general, in terms of, like, if March Madness were to start right now, this is what it would be. But definitely a lot of changes still to happen, basically. And I'm going to go region by region, and I'm also going to make my selections, actually. So I'm going to kind of do this as if I was doing a March Madness bracket. Now, before we continue, I am not even nowhere near an expert with these picks. Some of these teams I barely know about, so I'm going to do my best to do a little bit of research on them. So I'm going to take my time with this, so bear with me here. Now, there's quite a few of these teams, though, I do know information on, so I'll do the best I can. We're going to start the South region, which would be in Memphis, Tennessee. Baylor... whoever is in that top left region, the number 1 seed, that team is projected to be the best number 1 seed. And whoever's in the bottom left, the Midwest, which would be Virginia, which would be they'd be projected as the worst number 1 seed. So let's get to it. So Baylor, of course, was the number 1 seed last year overall in the AP 25 for a little bit there. They were a very, very, very strong team in the Big 12. It's them and Kansas who were the top 2. Baylor has a stout defense. Problem was at times they couldn't score. That definitely showed in some games, for sure. Them and Kansas would have these low-scoring games, and it'd be a battle for sure. But then you got the 16th seed Stephen F. Austin. Stephen F. Austin recently had a lot of their wins in sports stripped away because of school some violations, quite a few of them. I think they are not going to be playing in the NCAA postseason in 2022 as opposed to next year, so that's why they're actually on this bracketology. So Stephen F. Austin, though, that even means their 14-3 upset against West Virginia in 2016 has been stripped, so that win doesn't count now, which is probably one of the funniest upsets I can recall in recent history. West Virginia was this big bad team. We're going to get to my disdain on West Virginia later. My goodness. This big bad West Virginia Mountaineers team, and they got embarrassed that night. They got absolutely embarrassed. Thomas Walkup from Stephen F. Austin, for those of you who may remember him, he was a electrifying on that team. They almost got to the Sweet 16. They almost beat Notre Dame, but Notre Dame got to Elite 8 that year. But I would still take Baylor in this one, and this game's going to be played in Dallas. But Stephen F. Austin is from Nacogdoches, Texas, which is in eastern Texas, so really is hard to pick against Stephen F. Austin at times. They usually show up pretty decently in tournament games, which is really weird. The 8-9 matchup, LSU-Miami. Miami, we're talking about Miami in Florida, not Ohio, not the MAC school, but LSU is a team that's been more known for their offense in the last couple of years. Of course, their coach, Will Wade, was in trouble last year. He was prohibited from being on the court with the team during March Madness last year, but that didn't seem to affect him too much. They got to the Sweet 16 with relatively... Well, they had some tough games, trust me. But Miami, I don't know too much about this team. I know that they've been struggling the last couple of years. Maybe it was the recruiting they had. That's what's got them back in the bracketology for the first time in, since 2016, if I can recall. Down the stretch last season, though, they were not doing too well. They were only 15-16 when the season ended. They were only 7-13 in their conference. The ACC was quite interesting last year, we'll just say that. But their main scorer from last season was Chris Likes, 15.4 points a game. Now, this will be interesting. Don't know too much about them, but I would take LSU. But that's a tough one. That's like a toss-up, in my opinion. Okay, now we're going to go to the games that are being played in Boise, Oregon, the 5 seed in this region. Okay, I got problems here with this one already. Oregon lost Peyton Pritchard. Peyton Pritchard was really good. Of course, Oregon was a 12 seed in 2019. They got to the Sweet 16. They almost actually knocked off Virginia, the number 1 seed Virginia. Oregon, last year, I think they would have gotten... I don't know. That's a tough one because they were projected as a 4 seed by March in one of the regions, but I was kind of worried about them. They just didn't look the same to me. Of course, Bol was phenomenal on their team before he had a season-ending foot injury, not even far into the 2018-19 season. Then you're going up against Loyola Chicago, who, of course, everybody remembers in 2018, Loyola Chicago, the Cinderella team of this team. What do I even say about this team? Loyola Chicago were rocking in 2018 with Custer's was I can't think of his first name. His last name's Custer. I do know that. He was the MVC Player of the Year in Missouri Valley Conference, is where the Loyola Chicago resides from. But they got to the Final Four. They played with such passion. I don't know if they had that same passion. So I would lean towards Oregon in this case. But Loyola Chicago, they're sneaky. I'd be careful about them. Kentucky, South Dakota State. Of course, Kentucky with Emmanuel Quickly. Kentucky was definitely a favorite to win the whole thing last year. I think I would have taken them pretty far. South Dakota State, I don't know too much about this team. I know a couple years ago they were a popular upset pick against Fort Wayne, or not Fort Wayne, I'm sorry. I'm looking at some site, but Ohio State, but they lost by 9 in that game, I believe. South Dakota State did decently well last year. They were 22-10. They were 13-3 in the conference. Douglas Wilson was their leading scorer. He's a forward on their team. He averaged almost 19 points a game. He is a junior. I think sounds like he's going to his senior year. So this could help South Dakota State in a way with having that leadership possibly. But Kentucky, to me, I think Kentucky might be loaded, it seems like. Of course, Kentucky's going to be a favorite. No question about it. I'll take Kentucky in this one. Florida versus San Diego State. Now we're going to games being played out of Wichita, Kansas. Florida is a weird team to figure out right now. They blew a huge lead to Kentucky a few months ago. I think it was early March when I watched that game. Florida does not look like that team to me. San Diego State, same thing. San Diego State was a projected 1 seed last year in the bottom right region. And they kind of fell off a little bit. They were barely hanging in there. It seemed like their offense was kind of just struggling. They lost the Mountain West Conference Tournament title to Utah State. San Diego State, though, would have been a popular pick to go far, but it's hard to trust a team that loses momentum in a tournament. Going into the tournament, should I say. I would still take Florida. The San Diego State, though, I don't know. San Diego State lost one of their best players. He's gone now. Then the other game, Creighton, 3-seeded Creighton versus Winthrop. Creighton, let me tell you something. Creighton was, wow. Last year, this team was something else. They were definitely a favorite to go far. But if they would have been a 1 seed last year, ooh, I don't know. That's a lot of pressure. Creighton did lose one of their better players. I don't know if I have that much trust in Creighton right now. You know, trying to be a higher seed, but this team definitely is worth something. Winthrop, I don't know much about them. I'm still going to take Creighton, though. I mean, but you never know, though. Sometimes when you least expect it, the upsets happen, so that's a weird thing about it. Arizona State, now we're going to games played out of Detroit. Oh, Arizona State, the 7th seed. Arizona State versus 10 seed Oklahoma. Arizona State's getting a lot more attention recently because of who they've been picking up lately. I follow the CBB analyst on Instagram, the college basketball. His name used to be Selection Sunday Updates. He did like a tournament thing himself. He organized it in an absence, of course, of the March Madness tournament, of course. So he posts news on people committing, transfers, you name it. Really cool. I've been getting a lot of news lately about this. See if I can find it really quickly. But Arizona State's getting stacked this year. I think they're going to be a possible dark horse in the Pac-12 this year. If I were to pick a dark horse team for the Pac-12, I think it's Arizona State. That's right. Remy Martin. He withdrew his name from the 2020 NBA draft and will return to school for his senior season. He averaged 19 points a game, just over 19 points, shooting 43.2% from the field. That should definitely put the Sun Devils in contention possibly for a Pac-12 title. But you're going to have UCLA in the way. We'll get to UCLA later. Oklahoma, there's not much for me to even talk about with them. Oklahoma just seems like they're kind of there the last couple of years in this tournament. I don't know. Last year they beat Ole Miss, which was weird. They didn't have much going for me at that point. But I would soundly take Arizona State. Now Iowa versus Siena, 2 seed versus the 15. Iowa is a dangerous team. They're going to be a dangerous team next year. Luka Garza is returning to Iowa. For those who haven't heard yet, 2020-21 National Player of the Year. He averaged almost 24 points a game. This dude's a center, and he's a big physical guy who can move fast. You got somebody moving that fast, that's a problem. That's a huge problem. You can't stop him. Ooh, Lord, you better have some prayers. Let me tell you something. I have Iowa winning the Big Ten this year. I definitely believe Iowa can win the Big Ten, but there's going to be another team we talk about, I think, that might contest that very, very well. It's going to be exciting to watch this, but I would soundly take Iowa in an easy win. Now, we're going to make this go faster in this region. Baylor versus LSU. Baylor all the way. Kentucky versus Oregon. I got to pick Kentucky. Oregon I don't think is going to have it. I really don't think they will. And I actually like Oregon. Oregon's one of my favorite teams. Florida, Creighton, Arizona State, and Iowa. This would be a possible upset, though, because Arizona State, of course, is building this team. They're trying to build confidence. But you have a rampaging center in Luka Garza and possibly a even better supporting cast. This Iowa team is going to be hard to stop. I really don't think you can stop these guys. I'm going to take Iowa. I really have to. Baylor and Kentucky. This is a tricky one. If Baylor can't score, that's going to be a problem, and Kentucky can definitely score. I mean, we've seen it before. This is a Kentucky team that, you know, they're well built with March Madness generally. I got to take Baylor, though. Baylor is probably going to want some some choice words with that one. Or should I say, they're going to want some action. I don't know, some say-so. That's what I'm looking for, the word say-so. Let's go with Creighton versus Iowa. There's no way Creighton's beating Iowa. I just can't see it happening. I know, I'm going all chalk. Don't worry, it's going to change. Let's go to Baylor versus Iowa. If we get this game, this would be a phenomenal game. Even if we get Kentucky versus Iowa, I think that would also be a phenomenal game. But I gotta go with Iowa. I gotta pick Iowa. That's a very interesting take for sure. But Iowa to the Final Four. I need to remember this. So on to the Midwest, down to the Midwest. So who's gonna face Iowa? Well, we got the worst number one seed in this region, Virginia, who recently trended upward back to a number one seed, while Michigan State was at one point for a brief amount of time there. Virginia, funny enough, are still the defending champions from 2019. But can you believe it, though? Tony Bennett, after being knocked out in the first round as a number one seed, being the first number one seed to lose to a 16th seed to UMBC, Virginia turned things around quite nicely the following season. Their defense, combined with their crafty offense, really propelled them, and also some hard-fought battles. Don't forget those against Purdue and Auburn, especially, and Texas Tech. The last three games there for them in the NCAA tournament last year helped them propel themselves to the national title. Virginia, can they do it again? Well, they're facing the winner of Liberty or Norfolk State. Liberty had a very good defense last year, and I wouldn't have been surprised to see them go to the Sweet 16. That was a dangerous team, but it seems like Liberty is trending backwards. It seems like just based on their positioning alone. Norfolk State, don't know too much about them. Either way, I'm taking Virginia. I'm sure they won't let the 16-1 upset happen again, I guess. Purdue versus Arizona, the 8-9 matchups. Oh, I forgot, these games are being played in Raleigh, North Carolina. In the Midwest region has Minneapolis, where the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 would be played at. But Purdue lost Matt Harms to transfer portal. He went to BYU. Arizona can't be trusted, but this is the only time I'm picking Arizona because the last couple of years Arizona has just been kind of like in 2017, 2018, a lot of people were banking on this team to go to the national championship, especially in 2017, the 2016-17 season. But 11th seeded Xavier had other ideas, and then I had a very strange feeling in 2018 they would get upset by Buffalo, a MAC school, 13-4 upset. Yeah, Arizona, you suck. Just kidding. But I have to take Arizona. I don't think Purdue has enough power. Next set of games being played in San Jose, California. 5-seeded Tennessee versus 12-seeded Western Kentucky. Oh, my Lord. This is definitely upset alert. But Tennessee, of course, in 2018-19 had a stellar offense. At one point, they were ranked the top team in AP 25. Tennessee had Grant Williams and Admiral Schofield, just to name two other best players from that year. 2019-2020 season, they struggled to duplicate their success. They lost both of them to the NBA. Schofield, I don't think he plays in the NBA. I think he's in another league. I'm not sure, but Tennessee's definitely going to have to overcome some barriers and prove to us that they are the team to beat in the SEC and a team to be feared in the tournament. Western Kentucky, I think I've been hearing some good things about them. I'm not so sure. Let's look them up for a second. Western Kentucky last season, they were 20-10. They're out of the CUSA, Conference USA, by the way. It could be a possible upset. Their field goal percentage, their best shooter shot over 55% from the field. That was a forward. This could be a sneaky game. I really want to pick Western Kentucky just to kind of get some mix up in there. And Tennessee, they're a strange team sometimes in the tournament. It depends. You know what? Let's shake things up. I'll pick Western Kentucky. Why not? They could possibly be a potential upset pick. You never know. 12 seeds are the most popular in terms of the upset picks. It just depends. Texas versus Murray State. Oh, Lord, Texas. So, Texas is one of those teams that people are having a hard time trusting right now. For good reason. Texas went from being a continuous NCAA contender, a tournament contender, to being reduced to mediocrity at best in the last 5 to 6 years. Or several years, I should say. They've only made the tournament once in the last few years. That was in 2016. That was when Northern Iowa made that ridiculous half-court shot, and they almost upset Texas A&M, but then they got embarrassed. That was even more embarrassing, I think. Being up by 11 or 12, and Texas A&M scoring 12 points in 40 seconds. That's embarrassing. Then going to double overtime. Yeah. Anyway, Texas is coached by Shaka Smart. Shaka Smart, for those who don't know, used to coach VCU. Used to be the head coach there at VCU. VCU went to the Final Four in 2011 as an 11 seed. VCU had some pretty good seasons in there until he left. Of course, in the tournament-wise, didn't excel too much after their miracle 2011 run. Shaka Smart has failed to get Texas on their feet. Could this be Shaka Smart's last year in Texas? I'd say possibly, yeah. It seems to me he's more of a defensive-minded coach. Just from I don't know. Shaka Smart could be on the hot seat. I seen a post from the same Instagram user a few months ago about this. I'm not sure if I could find it, but yeah, on the hot seat. And this is where I found out. Texas had made the tourney 17 times in 18 seasons to a mediocre team who struggled to reach the 20-win mark each year. This is going to be a 6th season. Hopes are high, but Longhorn fans have been let down plenty of times before. If Texas fails to earn a bid to the NCAA tournament this upcoming season, could this be the end of the Shaka Smart era in Austin, Texas? I think it possibly could happen. Oh boy. Murray State has been notorious for upsets in the tournament. Murray State had Ja Morant last year, who was a top 5 pick in the NBA draft, I believe, if I remember correctly. Murray State is also notable for a 13-4 upset in 2010 against Vanderbilt. Murray State's a weird team, it seems like to me. I think in this situation though, I can't see Texas going down. Texas, I think this year will be fighting hard for what they believe in, and they believe, maybe the players, I don't know. I'm sure they want to believe, have everyone to believe that Shaka Smart is the guy for the Longhorns. We will find out. Only time is going to tell at this point. I got Texas winning that game. Now, next set of games played in Dallas. Oh dear. Houston, 6th seed versus a playing game. The winner of Syracuse and Marquette plays Houston. Oh no, Syracuse. Boy, oh boy, are they a tricky team or what? Or should I say, aren't they a tricky team or what? I don't have much for Marquette. Marcus Howard, I think, is going to the draft. Marquette's just an overrated team. That's all I got to say about them. Houston, I think, is going to win the AAC this year, but Houston's going to have to definitely improve. They struggled a little bit last year. I was worried about them. After having a spectacular 31-win season with Corey Davis Jr. on their team and having a spectacular defense, Cincinnati could, though, make a say-so in that. We're trying to get the AAC title, Syracuse went to the Final Four in 2016 as a 10 seed. They knocked off the 1-seeded Virginia that year in the Elite Eight. Syracuse is an 11th seed in 2018. They beat Michigan State in the round of 32. Then they almost beat Duke in the Sweet 16. Syracuse is a tricky team to figure out in the tournament. Why is that? I have no idea. Like, they'll get knocked out earlier of their conference tournament, and then a week later, boom, Syracuse is rejuvenated. They are revitalized. They've been resuscitated. What is it? What in the world? Since we're kind of going to get a little crazy here, I guess, Houston's in trouble with this game. Syracuse has that 3-2 zone, or that zone defense, that does give a lot of people problems. I don't expect anything different here with Houston. Houston's going to have problems against Syracuse. I'm taking Syracuse in this matchup. A lot of you think I'm going to be crazy for doing this, but Syracuse is hard to figure out in the tournament. I'm telling you. In 2019, I know that some people were even picking them to beat Gonzaga, for God's sakes. I don't think that was ever going to happen anyway, but they got beat by Baylor in the first round, which is weird. I don't know. All right, Texas Tech, the 3rd seed versus the 14th seed in New Mexico State. Texas Tech picked up Matt McClung from Georgetown. Matt McClung's got some good stats. Texas Tech seems to be rebuilt a little bit. Can they replicate their success in 2019? That's a hard one to answer. You got New Mexico State. New Mexico State is a tough team for sure as well, because New Mexico State's a team that has definitely been at the top of the WAC, Western Athletic Conference, over the last couple of years. They've been on a tear basically. And I think they should have a chance of being in the West Coast Conference with Gonzaga, St. Mary's, Brigham Young, BYU, I should say. Give them a chance, you know. That would also probably help them draw a higher seeding than 14. It's a tough one. New Mexico State's been a popular upset pick the last couple of years. I still got to roll with Texas Tech, though. Games played in Detroit. UCLA versus Alabama. UCLA is another team that could possibly steal the Pac-12 title. You know, it could come down between them and Arizona State. These are two teams that are really building up right now. UCLA is a very tough team. They were on a pretty good streak last year. Then they kind of burned out just a little bit. But UCLA, I think, is going to try and pick up where they left off. Their coaches really improving. UCLA could be rejuvenating themselves. They could be really on to some big things. Alabama, not sure what's going on. They're trending downward a little bit. I'll take UCLA in this game. Wisconsin Colgate. Wisconsin simple. They were pretty strong last year. They beat IU in a close one towards the end of the season. Colgate, don't know too much about them. I'm still going to pick Wisconsin. Could try to get through these pretty quickly. Virginia, Arizona. I'm going to go with Virginia. Western Kentucky versus Texas. This is a possible upset too, because will Texas will they keep it together this time? Will they actually pull through? I'd say yes. I'll take Texas over Western Kentucky in a very close game. Syracuse, Texas Tech. Ooh, I really want to pick Syracuse, but I can't just follow history like that. But it's weird how history works. I'm going to have to go with Texas Tech. UCLA versus Wisconsin. Wisconsin usually doesn't get upset in a tournament. They did get upset by Oregon last year. They had problems, though. Ethan Happ couldn't shoot. UCLA could throw them off for sure. You know what? Let's get a little crazy in this one. I'm going to pick UCLA over Wisconsin. Virginia versus Texas in the Sweet 16. This is a tough one. This is a very, very tough one. But Virginia, I forgot to mention this too, they were the best defense in 2019-20 season. But statistically, they had the worst offense. One of the worst offenses. Are they going to have some more offensive issues? This would come down to a matter of defense. Defense was won by Virginia usually. Virginia usually plays really, really stifled defense. Is Texas going to make it? I don't know. I have to pick Virginia. No. I don't know. That's a tough one. I'll go back to that. UCLA versus Texas Tech. You know what? Let's keep the UCLA train rolling. Because UCLA is a team that some people are going to have a hard time figuring out, possibly, I think. It's just crazy. Texas Tech, I don't know. Chris Beard's a great coach, but you can't run forever, You can't run with success forever. At some point, you're going to fall. When's that going to happen? We don't know. Texas versus Virginia, you know what? I'm going to lean Texas to give them a chance. Could they do something this year? Texas versus UCLA in the Elite Eight. My goodness, did I really take us there? Oh my gosh. Call me silly. But I'm putting Texas in the Final Four against Iowa. That's a real stupid decision. This is the region that could blow up, possibly. Okay, we're like half hour in, just over like almost 31 minutes in. We're going to try to speed up just a little bit. I'm going to try and speed it up. Let's go to the West region. Gonzaga. Oh gosh, Gonzaga's a weird team at times. Gonzaga could be a really big hit or a big miss. They got to the title game in 2017. 2018 they got to the Sweet 16. 2019 they got to the Elite Eight. This past season I think they could have gotten to the championship. They had Philip Petrusev. They had a talented squad. Philip Petrusev, by the way, is going to be leaving the team, of course. Gonzaga, but Mark Few, who's been coaching there for 20 years, Mark Few seems to know how to build these great offenses. Gonzaga typically has good defense. Not all the time, though. It seems like when Gonzaga faces a team with at least a decent defense, they get thrown off big time. They can't seem to keep it together a lot. Not sure why. Gonzaga's a weird team. They're kind of off-balanced a little bit when it comes to a decent defense. They get thrown off so badly sometimes, it depends. But I'm going to take, of course, they're going against Montana, which Montana, it's going to be Gonzaga. Arkansas, Stanford. Arkansas had a top 10 recruiting class. Arkansas could make a good dent in the SEC. Pardon me, sorry about that. Good dent in the SEC. They're going against Stanford. Stanford, there's just recent news on Stanford. Terrell Terry is staying in the 2020 NBA draft and foregoing his remaining college eligibility. He averaged just about 15 points a game, shooting 44% from the field. That's kind of a blow to Stanford. It's tough because Stanford, I don't know much on Stanford, but it just doesn't seem like I have much for them. I'll go with Arkansas, not by much. Louisville versus Vermont. Louisville, boy, they make this team a bunch of cheaters. They just recently got caught cheating a few months ago, I believe. Recruiting violation again. Vermont has been a kind of a popular upset pick the last couple of years. 2017, 2019. Louisville's a weird team. Last year, they were doing pretty good. Then they started collapsing a little bit. I don't know how much trust I have in this team, but Vermont also seemed to cannot pull through in terms of trying to do an upset. So that reason alone, I'm going with Louisville because of experience, but that's a tough one. Jordan Nora is not going to be on the team anymore, I believe. Whenever Jordan Nora played, they would be really, really good. Without him, they struggled a lot. Illinois versus Georgia State. Now, here's where you get the argument of between who's going to win the Big Ten. Is it going to be Iowa? Is it going to be Illinois? Is it going to be Michigan State? Is it going to be Ohio State? I don't think it's going to be Ohio State, that's for sure. After some of the news I've been hearing with them, they're losing like Luther Muhammad. They lost Caleb Weston, I believe. But then they just recently picked up on a player, I believe. So, Illinois had two players who are returning to the team. Their center, Kofi Cockburn, who is a great rebounder and a good scorer, shooting fantastic percentage, a fantastic shooting percentage, and Ayu Dosunmu, both are returning to Illinois. Illinois will most likely be I think Illinois is expected to be possibly a potential contender for the national title. Now, they're going to have a very tough Big Ten conference on their hands. You got Iowa, of course, like I said. You got Michigan State. IU could possibly have some say-so in that. You never know. Indiana is in the same region, actually, with Illinois, the West. I'll take Illinois, though. But Georgia State, though, most notable for what the accomplishment in the last few years, upsetting Baylor as a 14 seed, with R.J. Hunter hitting the 3. 6th seed North Carolina versus 11th seed Seton Hall. I feel like this is a no-brainer, but North Carolina, after last season, I think they're going to be really fired up to try and rebound. Roy Williams is a great coach. Seton Hall, I think, lost Miles Powell to the draft. Yeah, I don't really have much chance with Seton Hall. I'm going to go with North Carolina, even though they turned it down in one spot. Okay, Michigan State versus Buffalo. Michigan State, they're not going to have Cassius Winston. I don't think they're going to have Xavier Tillman now, if I remember correctly. Michigan State is going to have a huge question mark on their head, to me, because, you know, what's it going to... Are they going to do well? This is going to be interesting. For sure. Buffalo, though. Buffalo, known for making that big upset against Arizona, then being a powerhouse in 2018-19. Of course, they don't have C.J. Massenberg. I'll take Michigan State, though, in this one. IU versus St. Louis. IU has built their team better from the sounds of it. St. Louis has flown under the radar, though, now. Trying to I'm gonna mention more about the A10, the Atlantic 10 Conference, a little bit here soon, but talking about them in Richmond. But St. Louis is definitely going to be a pick to win the A10. I don't know much about St. Louis right now. Let's see what they were last year. Last year they were 4th in the A10, 23-8, so respectable stats. Decent scorer. Jordan Goodwin was their main scorer. 47.3 shooting percentage from the field. Junior could be interesting. This could be an interesting game for sure. But for some reason I'm liking IU, Indiana. I'm liking them more. Not sure why. It's just a weird thing I got, although IU struggled last season. Their shooting percentage, Trace Jackson Davis, he led in that and points per game. He was basically, he's a young guy too, so definitely watch out for him next year. He could definitely be a difference maker for this team. I'm going to go with Indiana, though. Also, in part 2, possibly a really tough conference play as well. Kansas versus UC Irvine. Kansas is not going to have Udoka Azubuike. He was phenomenal. I'm not a Kansas fan, but that team was very stacked last year. They were the number 1 spot in the AP 25. The last little bit there of the season. UC Irvine made an upset last year in 2019, but this is not that same team. I definitely have to go with Kansas. But Kansas is a weird team sometimes in the tournament. They're kind of funny. They act finicky. Gonzaga versus Arkansas. Gonzaga. I think that's no question, honestly. But I'm hesitant on Gonzaga this year. I'm not so sure about them so much. Ooh, yeah. Louisville versus Illinois. I have to pick Illinois. Illinois is going to be stacked this year. I think some people are going to still be like, well, blah, 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 this, blah, 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 that. Illinois got a great defensive team for sure. And if they can score just even enough, just bare minimum or whatever however you want to put it, this is a team that's hard to stop. North Carolina versus Michigan State. I'm knocking Michigan State out. I don't have much trust in them right now. Michigan State can also be a finicky team in the tournament. They have been in the last few years. I mean, they did get to the Final Four last year, but I don't know. North Carolina seems to me a team that could be on the verge of trying to get a lot of revenge. I could see it happening. This is a team that usually is a very consistent program with their basketball team. Of course, their basketball program. I really screwed that up. UNC though. 6-3 upset. 7-seeded IU versus 2-seed Kansas. Ooh, I'm not so sure about this one. It's a tough one. I want to pick IU, but I'm going to pick Kansas. All right, Gonzaga versus Illinois. I have to pick Illinois here. I got to knock out number 1 seed because Gonzaga, to me, I just don't see them getting very far next year. They're going to be a favorite. They're always a favorite. A lot of people get caught up in that with the 1 seeds. Don't do it. Don't do it. It's not worth it. North Carolina versus Kansas. Tough one. I'll pick Kansas. Kansas, Illinois. Gotta throw another Big Ten team in there. It could happen. It honestly could happen. Illinois' got a really, really serious shot here, I think, of going to the Final Four next year. They just have to play their cards right. They gotta play really, really smart basketball. Can they do it? I think they can do it possibly. So Illinois, they got Iowa versus Texas. The Texas pick, I know. Let's go to the bottom right, the last region. Been talking a lot here, but let's do this. All right, Villanova's the 1 seed here. Villanova's got a very stacked team. I think if there's going to be any number 1 seed that's favored the most, it probably will be Villanova. Because people are probably going to be like, well, look at 2016, look at 2018. Listen, you got Colin Gillespie on Villanova. This team is stacked. This is a well-rounded team. They are definitely in a higher gear, of course. They're right back to where they basically were. Facing the winner of Fairleigh Dickinson and Southern. Villanova's going to win that game. All right, Richmond versus UConn. Really, really important points here for these two teams. Richmond, 2 of their better players returned to their team. Richmond's a part of the A10. That's what I was talking about with St. Louis. I think it's going to come down to them in St. Louis. Dayton, of course, is not going to have Obi Toppin. Dayton was phenomenal last year. No question about it. Obi Toppin was at the best of his game. Incredible athlete, by the way. That dude can move. For how big he is. Yeah. That's a very interesting sight there. But Richmond, though, Richmond's a sneaky team. They could be a sneaky team, honestly. With those 2 players returning to their team, I think Richmond's got a much better chance of winning that conference and possibly making a sneaky upset in the tournament. They're going to be one of the teams I think about with an upset pick. St. Louis, yeah, Jordan Goodwin is going to return to St. Louis. That's big news for St. Louis. But Richmond over UConn. UConn, there's not enough for me to believe UConn's going to win, but they're going to the Big East. That's a big step up for them. They were in the AAC, I believe. UConn hasn't been a good team since 2016 at least. Good enough to make the tournament. I have to go with Richmond, though. I just think Richmond's going to have I think a stronger, more solid team. UConn's got to face Villanova, Creighton. Boy, there's a lot of unanswered questions with UConn. Not so sure about this right now. Okay, Florida State versus Furman, 5 versus 12. Furman was really good last year. Florida State was too. Florida State was on fire last year. Furman is in the Southern Conference. They were behind East Tennessee State. Furman, Jordan Lyons was their leading scorer, averaging just over 16.4 points a game. He was a senior, so he won't be on the team, it looks like, next year, of course. Noah Gurley has a good field goal percentage. Defensive-wise, their stats are all right. They had a very decent offense last year, but who's going to step up to the plate? I will take Florida State, though. Florida State, Leonard Hamilton, my goodness. You want to talk about a team that is really trying to build a team? It's Florida State. Leonard Hamilton, I think Leonard Hamilton is definitely a solid coach. And, that's a tough team right there. Florida State. Not sure what it is, but let me tell you something. Watch out for Florida State. I've been rooting for them the last few years. I really want to see them do something. There was just some big news about Florida State recently, too. Not sure. But I'm going to take Florida State in that game. All right, 4-seeded Ohio State versus 13-seeded Yale. Ooh, boy. I'm going to probably trigger some people with this one. Ohio State's C.J. Walker is returning. He averaged about 9 points a game. Ohio State, hot take, I don't think it's going to be that impressive next season. Call me a hater. But, we'll see. Ohio State, they'll be okay. I think they will be good. I don't think they're going to be good enough, though. That's a really tough conference you got going on there, the Big Ten. Maryland's going to be another threat, depending on what Jalen Smith and Anthony Cohen do. You got Michigan in the mix. Forgot them. Rutgers is another team I just forgot about, too. Ooh, boy. Yale has been a popular upset pick the last couple of years. Them being out of the Ivy League, a very solid team. I gotta make the big call here. I have to pick Yale for the upset. I really do. Can Yale do it? Paul Atkinson, phenomenal shooter. What's his year? A junior. I'm not sure if he put his name in the NBA draft, but if he didn't, that's a huge advantage for Yale. Let me tell you that. He shoots well. You need to watch out for Yale next year if he's returning because, oh boy, that spells trouble for some teams. I gotta pick the biggest upset here that I'm gonna make, possibly. Who knows? Yale over Ohio State at 13-4. Rutgers versus the winner of Memphis and Providence. Rutgers, woo! Talk about a team that has really turned things around. Rutgers, phenomenal at home, not so good on the road. I'm worried about that. But they face the winner of Memphis and Providence. Memphis is a team that some people are getting some people's attention. I'm not as confident in them. Meanwhile, you have a team like Providence who went on a phenomenal hot streak at the end of the previous season, 2019-20 season. And I would have absolutely had them on an upset train during the tournament. I think that would have likely happened. Terrific defense. Am I saying that's what's going to happen this year too? I don't know. That's tough. I think if Rutgers faces Providence, they're in more trouble. Rutgers has really proven themselves. I don't think they've won an NCAA tournament game in a while. It's been quite a while. You know what? Let's go ahead and look it up. I'm really curious, actually, to see And even at one point last season, they were ranked. I think they were ranked as high as 20th, maybe. They haven't made the NCAA tournament since 1991, and they haven't been to the Final Four since 1976. They have not even won an NCAA tournament game since 91, when they got to the Sweet 16. They lost to Penn State by 3. So, Rutgers could be a sleeper as well, but we'll see. I'll stick with Rutgers. West Virginia. Oh, my Lord. Now, I was roasting West Virginia a little bit much earlier in the talk. The 3-seeded West Virginia versus the 14-seeded Wright State. West Virginia, oh, my Lord. Last season, they were up to a 2-seed at one point. In one of the regions, in one of the bracketologies, they were projected 2-seed. And they started tanking exponentially. They lost like 9 of a 10-game stretch or whatnot. 9 games in a 10-game stretch there or whatever. They kind of snapped out of it a little bit at the end there, but still, I would have had them out early. And this year, is it going to change much? Who knows? Bob Huggins is like, I don't know. Bob Huggins used to coach at Cincinnati back in the 90s. This is a weird team. But West Virginia, though, they haven't been to the Final Four since 2010. And they may have their time coming soon, though. They got to the Sweet 16 2 years in a row in 2017 and 18. They almost beat, in those years, respectively, Gonzaga and Villanova. They had some very competitive games there. So one could argue that West Virginia is going to try and turn the quarter. I think they could. We'll see. Michigan versus Ole Miss. This is a tough one. It's a coin flip. I don't know who's going to win this one. Michigan's been kind of up and down this offseason. I don't know enough about Ole Miss to really trust them very well. I have not picked the 10 seed yet. So I'll just pick Ole Miss because I have not picked a 10 seed yet. And they weren't too good last year. They were only 6-12 in their conference. Brian Tyree, he averaged almost 20 points a game. That was their leading scorer. Let's see what school year he was this past. So he was a senior, so he would be graduating. He's already graduated. So Kadeem Sy, who was their best in terms of field goal percentage, he's going to be a senior. Is he going to be stepping up to the plate? Who is stepping up to the plate for Ole Miss? Who's going to? But I'll take Ole Miss since I have not picked the 10 seed yet anyway. I know this kind of sounds ridiculous. And you got Duke. Certainly, Duke is Duke against Charleston, 15th seed at Charleston. Duke last year, they lost to some bad teams. They lost to NC State. They lost to Wake Forest. They lost to Virginia. Virginia was not really a bad team last year. They just didn't have a good offense. But Duke will try to run through the wall, basically. They got to the Elite Eight 2 years in a row, 2018 and 19. They got knocked out early in 2017. They've had an interesting track record the last few tournaments. Of course, I'm going to take Duke. Villanova versus Richmond. Villanova, this could be a very sneaky game for Villanova because I think Richmond is going to be a better team than some people might possibly think. I have to take Villanova, though, because of tournament experience. Richmond doesn't have that. But one of Richmond's most notable achievements in their basketball team's history, probably their most notable, was when they made their 15-2 upset against, I think it was Syracuse, and it was in 1991. Very interesting, though, with this team. But I'm going to stick with Richmond, but this would be a very good game, I think. Florida State versus Yale. I got to ride with Florida State. I'm going to. Rutgers versus West Virginia. This is a tough one. This is a really, really tough one here because Rutgers is getting it together, you know. This is a team that's really, really gotten themselves in I would say like a really, really toughened team, especially at home. Miles Johnson, 60% from the field. He's a center, so it'd probably be a lot of, I don't know, could be quite a bit of perimeter shooting going on. But Ron Harper Jr., he'll be a junior. Whoops. I got the sound on. But Rutgers is a tough team. But West Virginia usually has that defense that Bob Huggins likes to institute with his team. Very tough option here. I feel like taking Rutgers, but I don't want to pick 2 6 seeds to upset in a row. Pardon me. Rutgers doesn't do very well on the road from what I see. Rutgers is definitely going to be an interesting team to watch, though, but I'm going to have to take Rutgers in this one. I can't trust West Virginia. I just can't. Ole Miss versus Duke. It's going to be Duke. Villanova versus Florida State. If this matchup happens, this is going to be, without a doubt, one of the most intense games, I think, of the tournament. You got a guy that likes to drive to the rim a bit. He's definitely the guy who really tries to set the play. Of course, with Gillespie. This Villanova team has a lot of skills. Florida State runs a great defense, for sure. This is going to be a tough one here. A very tough pick. I really want to go Florida State, but something's telling me going with Villanova, because Villanova's a very tricky team with this one, but it depends too. They can get upset by Richmond. That's a legitimate upset pick, possibly, for sure. Richmond's a sneaky team, I think, this year. They're going to be one of those teams this year. But oh man, this is really, really tough. It's hard. So between Villanova and Florida State, I'm just going to roll with Villanova, but that's a really tough pick. Rutgers versus Duke. I think this is where Rutgers' run comes to an end. I'm going to go with Duke. But Duke can be, we all know, it can be one of those teams that it's just like, oh, we have to play basketball? I mean, getting upset by Lehigh and then getting upset by Mercer 2 years later. Oh, gosh. Mercer, that one was just because all the guys dancing on the side of the court, just being like, ooh, 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 ooh. I'm like, okay, you still got more games to play, but anyway, no, Villanova versus Duke. I'm going to go with Villanova. I think Villanova's talented this year. They're really stacked, but my opinion could change depending on what happens this season. So down to the Final Four. Finally to the Final Four. Iowa versus Texas. I got to stick with Iowa. Texas, like I said, Texas has got a lot of questions. A lot of people, I think more and more people are not trusting this team. I'm probably giving them way too much leeway at this point. I'm going to end that. I'm going to pick Iowa. Villanova versus Illinois. This would be a phenomenal game. You got defense versus offense. Well, Villanova, too, is good on defense. This is a tricky game. Really, really is. I mean, I absolutely would watch this game for sure. This would be exciting. But I think Illinois runs out of gas too soon. I don't know. You know, this is a really, really enticing matchup. You're talking some physical defensive guys against some really good offense. I think Villanova outsmarts them by just a little bit. Then you got Villanova versus Iowa in the title game. I might be riding on them a little bit too much, but I'm picking Iowa to win the whole thing next year. I mean, they are a serious candidate to win the whole thing next year. And that's it. Ta-da, that was it. But yeah, I want to thank you guys for listening and riding along with this episode 2 of the Stormfront podcast. The next episode, I think, is going to be on, I'm not so sure yet. We'll see. It might be something about storms, or like weather, or it might be about something else. I'm not so sure. But thank you guys for listening. So subscribe to the channel if you're new as well. I'm going to try to get these podcast episodes up on Apple Podcasts when I can. But I'll talk to you guys again later. Take care, everyone.